with an introduction to you and your books?
I'm Helena, also known as Nell. As Nell, I write contemporary romance, and as Helena, I write historical fiction set in the 1930s, and especially the Miss Underhay mystery series, which is set in Torbay, Devon. So that's sort of what I'm doing at the minute. And book 6 in that series has just been released.
So the first one's Murder at the Dolphin Hotel.
Yes.
Which introduces us to Kitty, the main character, and Matt. I'm 3 books into the series and really enjoying them. Very good. So I've got loads of questions for you before we start getting I'm just going to monopolise you for a bit.
That's all right.
The Dolphin Hotel.
Yes.
In Dartmouth, in the book. Yeah. Is it based on the real Dolphin Hotel in Dartmouth?
No, but it is based loosely. The description of it is based on a real building in Dartmouth, which is quite an old building, which is called York House. It's currently, well, it was a shop in the bottom of it. I think that shop's up for lease at the minute, but it's a big half-timbered building. Anybody that goes into Dartmouth would recognise it from the description straight away. I've slightly tweaked where it actually is for the purposes of the book, but it is an actual building, so you can actually see it and go, that must be what she's talking about. So yes, a lot of the places in the book are real. You can go to them, but obviously all the characters are fictional. And I move a few things around just a little tiny bit, just for the purposes of the story.
I think that's okay. Yeah, when I was reading the first one, I'm fairly sure I've been for a pint in the Dolphin Hotel. Like the real Dolphin Hotel.
Yeah, there is a hotel called, I think it's Bayard's Cove, which also fits the same sort of description. So if you did want to go, for food or a drink while you're in Dartmouth at a place that feels like the Dolphin, then I highly recommend. It's very good there.
Yeah, I've been to I've stayed in Bayard's Cove actually.
There you go.
Well, yeah.
Probably like it feels familiar then.
So we start with Kitty sort of working in the hotel, and then she meets Matt in the first book, and they are obviously the sort of running characters throughout. One thing I feel like you do really well in it is build the backstory of them, because I think in some long-running series you can have like the character's backstory can feel like it drags on. But I feel like Matthew sort of got his own problems, and so taking his time to come out with his story is very sort of real. I think it's quite like it. What can you tell us without giving any spoilers about their backstories?
Kitty's backstory really is that her mother went missing in June 1916. No one knows what happened. Kitty's desperately trying to find out. She was only a child at the time. Obviously, the First World War was going on, so things weren't as they always were. As the books go on, you find out more about what's happened to her mother and who the people are who are likely to be responsible. I think I've tried to keep it true to life in that you never know all of the answers, because you don't in life, do you? But you can pretty well put the pieces together and get a very good idea of what's likely to have happened along the way. And there's some quite dramatic events, particularly those people who've read Murder on the Dance Floor will know that there's quite some big revelations in there about Kitty's mum. And then Matt obviously has got his own backstory about his marriage, what happened to his wife and his baby, his post-traumatic stress disorder, because he's a First World War veteran. So he's a little bit older than Kitty. He's quite, when they first meet, he's quite sort of set in his ways, and he's got quite a few issues of his own. He suffers from severe claustrophobia as a result of being in the trenches and witnessing what happens when the trenches collapse. He'd seen men and horses suffocate in front of him. So he's quite not very good within closed spaces. And he does have night terrors sometimes, where he wakes up the next morning and the room's smashed up and he can't remember what's happened or how how it's occurred. And you sort of see their characters evolve as they go through, as they get used to one another, because I was quite keen that their backstory shouldn't stay a backstory, but they also, as characters, they develop, so they're learning new things themselves as their relationship progresses, and the other characters come more on board as well as you learn more about them and their stories as well.
So we've already got people watching. So we've got Lucy, Sam, Jason, Leslie Field, and Susan McMillan all dropping comments on the stream. So Jason wants to know how long you've been writing.
I've been writing a very long time, actually. I started writing when I was a teenager. I joined my first writing group when I was 13. None of those things will probably ever see the light of day, I hasten to add. But then I got my first publishing deal when I was 40. I've been saying all my life, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to be published, I'm going to write a book. And I had some major life issues and health issues coming up to my 40th birthday. And I just thought, well, when am I going to do it? If not now, then when? My children were getting a little bit older, so I sort of started to pick up where I'd left off. I literally stopped writing for a while when I had my eldest daughter, because I had 3 children in 4 years, so that took up a little bit of my time. So once the girls were a little bit older, that was when I started to get back into writing again. And I've got, I think it's about 30 odd books out under my Helena Dixon name. Some are out of print now, some are due to be republished, luckily. That's coming up in the near future. But quite a few of my romance books have got crime elements in them, and I've always wanted to write crime. So it's quite exciting to do it now, and it combines it with my love of history.
Yeah, well, I like both historical and cozy crime, so I think the first time we booked you for an interview, it wasn't with me, but I looked you up and I was just like, these are everything like I want to read.
Thank you.
So I started back then. I'm still like Susan McMillan commented, actually. She says she's just started reading the series. She's now on book 2 and really enjoying them. Looking forward to reading more about Kitty and Matt. Susan, you're catching me up because I'm on just finished book 3.
Yeah, that's Murder at the Playhouse. So you're ready for book 4, which is Murder on the Dance Floor.
Yeah,
then.
with
There's
all the
a lot of things in that one that
I know. Now I'm going to have
to make you go.
I'm going to finish this interview and go and download book 4. Now you've said that. Where are we? Lucy wants to know what drew you to the cozy side of crime.
I think because as a reader, I'll read pretty much anything, but I don't like horror, and I'm not particularly fond of sort of heavy literary fiction. I'll read sort of the lighter stuff, but I find the heavy stuff, it just doesn't work for me. I don't like particularly gory things. I think I've got they stay with me too much. They live in my head for too long. And I really like the mystery aspect, the puzzle side, this working out the whodunit, and the psychology of the characters. That's what's important to me. And I can't resist putting some funny things in, which really doesn't work when you try to write something dark and gritty. I think you need a different set of skills to do that. And I don't think I've necessarily got those particular skills. And I love things like Agatha Christie and Gail Marsh, all of those kind of things. If I'm watching on TV, I like things like the Death in Paradise books. I like puzzles, really. So that's why I like the cozy crimes.
They feel very like the have you read the Kate Shackleton series by Frances Crosby?
Yes, they're very good. I love those. I like Kate Shackleton books, and also like L.B. Hathaway's books as well. They're good.
Yeah, I feel like if you're a big fan of Kate Shackleton, you would like Kitty as well. Like, they're both quite strong ladies, aren't they?
Yeah, Kitty's grown from when she started off in Murder at the Dolphin Hotel, when she was quite sort of really just a bit feeling like a fish out of water and wanting more from her life, but not really knowing what she wanted or how she wanted it. but you could see she got the germs within her of being quite a strong female character. And as the book's progress, you can see more of that coming out in it. And that's part of her tussle with Matt, because he's had to learn to sort of rein himself in a bit from wanting to sort of elbow her out of the way and take charge, because she gives him as good as he gets, really. So he's had to sort of take a bit of a back seat sometimes.
Yeah. Sam wants to know, she said, how difficult is it to write about difficult issues such as PTSD in a sensitive way?
I think you have to know your subject. And of course, the way it was recognised and not recognised then, and the way it was sort of treated and regarded in society then, is very different to now. And it's sometimes difficult in any historic novel to be sensitive to a modern reader who is looking at it through the lens of the current day, but staying true to how things would have been at the time, and how that particular issue would have been at the time. So it is a bit of a balance, really, to make sure that you get that balance right. Because I'm a nurse, I'm a registered nurse, midwife, health visitor, nursing practitioner. So I've got quite a lot of medical and nursing knowledge, which helps me with some of the issues that I can write about, to make sure that they are true, that they are balanced and presented properly.
Good answer. And you answered another question that I don't need to ask you now, which is what you did before being a writer.
I've had quite a varied career, because I've worked obviously as a nurse for a long time, but I also have always had a career outside the NHS. So in my time, I'm also a qualified shoe fitter for Start-Right Shoes, should you ever need shoes fitted. That was very useful with 3 children, let me tell you. I've done all sorts of things. I've worked in urban agriculture, looking at food deserts and food supplies. I've worked for disability charities. I've done all kinds of things, really.
Wow, you're quite a talented lady. Sam, it says that it's exciting about the books being republished. Tell us which ones are being republished.
Well, the plan is at the moment, and this is the first time anybody knows about this, but the plan is that the books I wrote for Little Black Dress, I did 4 books for Little Black Dress, which are kind of chick lit-ish in a way, are going to hopefully be republished with new covers and new titles. They're starting with the first one, which was Animal Instincts, and that one won the Rona Award for Best Category Romance in the UK for its year, for the RNA. So they're just at the process. We're just at the process at the moment of looking at covers and looking to see what if anything needs to be tweaked in that. But I'm quite excited about that, because that book still gets so many comments even now from readers. I'll still sometimes get an email from somebody saying, I love that book, when are you going to do another one? And it's kind of like, well, at the minute I'm kind of busy, but you know.
So what made you leap into doing, so you said that you've always enjoyed crime and that you've put some crimes in your romance book, but what made you make that final turn into going into writing crime books?
I'd got Kitty's voice in my head, and at the time I wasn't quite sure what it wanted to be. I wasn't sure whether it was going to be a romance with crime elements, or whether it was going to be a proper crime book with romantic elements. And I had it for about 4 years, with just stalled, just a few chapters done, but it just wouldn't go away. It just kept niggling away at me. And then I suddenly thought, I know what I need to do with this. I need to set it in a permanent place I really know really well and really love, and where it worked. And as soon as I said, it's in the 1930s, because there was so much political things, so much social change going on then, it all came together, everything came together, and the books just took on a life of their own. And I actually drew up outlines for up to 12 of the story. So, and I'm just about to start book 8 at the moment, so we'll see how that goes.
So, before I go on and I keep asking my questions, TK Gearing, TG, lovely T, says, evening. everyone. Kim Nash has popped on and says, hello, my lovely Nell. Sorry I'm late, just popping in while cooking tea. So 12 books in the series.
That was my original idea. Yeah. I think my agent sort of went when I said, "Oh, I've got 12 outlines." I mean, they were literally just paragraph for each sort of thing, but I kind of got the thread for the whole thing running through. So we'll just have to see how it goes, because obviously things evolve as they go along. I'm not a great planner, I have to admit. I tend to sort of adapt as I go on.
Just so many authors that I interview say this, and they're always the ones that write really complicated plots. Who are like, I don't really plan, I just work it out as I go.
I for each book I literally have it's literally a 1-page very loose outline, with sort of split into 3 acts, and then I just sort of work it out from there. Sometimes I'll get to almost the end of the book and I still haven't quite decided who the murderer is. So it always makes me laugh if somebody says, "Oh, I knew from the start it was going to be so-and-so," because I'm thinking, well, I didn't. I didn't know. So sometimes I do, but sometimes I just really don't.
So we're going to ask you a perennial question. You've been asked a lot and you probably hate, but are we going to get an answer to Kitty and Matt? Are they going to get together?
Well, the book I've just turned into my lovely editor, which is Murder at the Wedding, which is actually Kitty's cousin Lucy's wedding to Rupert at his big house come castle in Yorkshire. There is a bit of an answer within that book, so you'll have to wait for that one to come out. That one's out in October, so you can see from there where it's all going. Yeah. But yeah, I get asked all the time, are they going to get together? Are they? I must have about a little file of letters going, are they going to get married? You have to wait and see. But there are more developments, because with the later books, like Murder at Elm House sees Kitty learning to drive, so that's another big step for her. Matt is sticking to his motorbike because he likes his motorbike. But yeah.
I've got my fingers crossed for Kitty and Matt getting together. Leslie Field's written a really nice comment. She says she loves cozy crime as a genre because they're more of a whodunit and the person killed isn't usually someone as a character that's especially missed. Well, that's what she's found. Don't know if it's generally true. She likes the way that there are interesting female sleuths in cozy crime like Fern Fisher and Agatha Raisin.
Yeah. And I think I like to see a female, a strong woman. And particularly in Kitty's case, because it's set in the 1930s, which is a time which was very dominated by men. I mean, and there's parts of that social history which come through in the books themselves. Like Murder on the Dance Floor, when she goes to buy a dress and the assistant in the dress shop has to turn her wages over to her father every week. She's not allowed to keep her own wages, and then she gets pocket money back, even though she's working as an independent woman. And I think we kind of forget sometimes how much things have changed for women. So although Kitty's strong, she still has to move within the framework of her time. Because of her grandmother's position in the town, she also has to be very aware of how she's perceived socially. So she's sort of all the time she's pushing those constraints and pushing those boundaries a little bit and reminding everybody that, she is fully independent. But I think we kind of forget in the modern day that women weren't always allowed to have their own bank account or learn to drive or wear trousers even. It was quite a shocking thing sometimes.
But it's exactly how you said, and I feel like this is again where you can draw parallels between sort of people like Kate Shackleton and Kitty, in that that history so well and your characters so well, that where they are pushing those boundaries and where they are working sort of within those constraints, it feels very accurate to the time that they're in.
Yeah,
So you've
because
not just transplanted like a normal, strong kind of forward woman that we would think of now to that time. You've made her strong and independent, but very knowledgeable about her time and her constraints, and how she plays with them is sort of what reflects that inner strength that she has.
Yeah, because that's always the danger, I think, when you're writing something set within a time period, that you don't just use the time period, if you like, almost like a stage set with people walking through it, modern people walking through it. That it shouldn't feel like that. It should feel that those characters are part of that time, and that you can believe that, you know, that the issues that they're facing.
How much research do you have to do for that then? How much have you had to learn about the 1930s and Dartmouth? And
loads, absolutely loads. And sometimes it's not even the big things, sometimes it's little things. But I've actually done some of Kitty's journeys, so that we've taken the steam train down to Kingswear, gone over on the ferry as passengers, gone on the little waterboat taxi to the steps of the castle, walked up the steps, taken tea in the tea room. The tea room is the same as it was then, hasn't changed. And then you can walk down from the castle down into Dartmouth exactly as you could have done back in Kitty's time. So, and I've got huge files of photographs. And my poor editor, when I'm telling her different things and we talk about like different covers or different aspects of it, and I usually end up sending her all these collection of photographs. So like, for instance, the cover for Elm House, Murder at Elm House, the latest book, the car on the front, I met up with a guy called Julian. He's the chair of Torbay Old Wheels Club, and they have vintage cars. And he very kindly invited me to his house and gave me a tour of his own 1930s Morris car, and was telling me all the different rules and regulations that applied. And I've got photographs of door handles and wing mirrors and indicators and how you fasten the luggage on and all kinds of things, which you don't see masses of in the book, but it's got to be authentic and real. Like now we'll say, you know, for us in the UK, we'll talk about a car putting its indicators on to turn a corner, but they were called trafficators then. So it's sort of knowing to use the word trafficator, but still make it clear to a modern reader that she's talking about the indicator. And you couldn't park up at night, for instance, on the side of the road without leaving a light on in case you would get a fine. So the one scene where she's literally stalking the bad guys and she's parked up, she's on tenterhooks in case a policeman comes along and gives her a fine, because of course she's parked with the lights off and hiding behind a tree. So there's all sorts of different things, but they're little bits that just need to be there. So I do loads of research, but you can't know everything. There's always going to be something that you don't know. And sometimes I do use a little bit of artistic license. You know, if something will work better in a scene by using something that a modern reader will recognise, that somebody, you know, that wouldn't have been used necessarily back then, but if I use the original thing, nobody would know what I was talking about, then I have to sort of try and balance that up a little bit. But I do try and stick as much as I can to being authentic things.
How much is a real sort of place? Because I'm picturing the few times I've been to Dartmouth in my head, and it's quite an old town. So how much of it is kind of the same as it would have been back then?
Pretty much most of it, to be honest, because although it was damaged during the Second World War, they rebuilt it. So the boat float is it as it was. The ferries that cross the Dart, they've been going since the late 1800s, and they're pretty much unchanged really from how they were. So you can go to the Butterwalk, you can cross over on the ferry, you can walk around the streets and up the steps that I talk about. So the Saviour's Church goes back to the 1300s. The vicar was very kind and gave me a wonderful tour. It was just after Christmas. They were taking the Christmas tree down. And he gave us a wonderful guided tour and explained which bits had been restored and everything. And the door there is just, if you ever get a chance to go, just go look at the door on it. It's absolutely amazing. This fantastic medieval door. with these great iron hinges and the griffins on the door. They're just incredible. So there's a lot of it that's actually completely unchanged. The bits in Exeter, in the later books where I talk about Exeter, those two, the parts around the Cathedral Green, although again there was a lot of damage done during the Second World War, some of the streets I refer to in the later books, those streets are still there, those houses are still there, the arches on the waterfront are still there. You can go down, they've got little craft shops in them now, and it's a lovely place to spend a Sunday morning down on the waterfront at Exeter. It really is beautiful. You know, you've got the swans, and sometimes there's a band playing, and you know, it's very easy to imagine Kitty and Matt back in time down there.
Lovely. Who has a say on the covers? Do you help develop those, or because they're wonderful covers?
The cover artist is absolutely brilliant. We had a discussion right at the start when we were planning the series about what kind of feel we wanted it to have, and we very much wanted it to have a kind of Art Deco, 1930s feel. As I said, the cover for Elm House, the car was based on some photos of Julian's car. The Elm House itself is based on a photo of a fabulous building, which is now a set of apartments in Torquay, which is this incredible Gothic-looking mansion. It's set a bit further back from where I've set it, but it's still there. You can see, and I've sent photos of this to my editor, and she passed them on to Debbie, the cover artist, to show her sort of what I was thinking. And she sort of took that on board, right down to things like Matt presents Kitty with the keys to the car and some red driving gloves. And you notice on the cover to Elm House, she's wearing the red driving gloves, and they're the ones that Matt gave her for the Christmas. So yeah, it's little things. It makes me very happy when I see them, because I think, oh, and then hopefully the readers, when they read it, will think, oh yeah.
They're really nice covers. They draw you into the story. They kind of add to the story, don't they? Like, you can go back and recognize events. So I feel like Dartmouth itself is full of like lovely little independent bookshops, and quite kind of proud of its local literature and things. Have you ever done any book signings down there?
Not for a long time. I did when I was writing my Helena Dixon books, because the one book, Crystal Clear, was set in Brixham. So that was set, I did some book signings in Exeter for Waterstones in Exeter, and also one of the independent bookshops that was there at the time in Brixham. But who knows, might be able to do some in the future. It would be nice too, I think.
It would, yeah. I'd like to go down and be able to, I've only read them in Kindle so far.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to go down to Dartmouth next time I'm down there and walk into the local bookshop and buy some paperbacks of my Kitty Under Hay.
Yeah.
series. Do you sell signed copies of your books, like directly? When people contact you? Some of our readers love a signed copy. This is why I'm asking.
Sometimes if people ask, I do. Usually it's when I've given copies away for various charities and different events. I do quite a lot to support libraries, so I'm always happy to do stuff for libraries. I do a lot for Macmillan and cancer research, so I often give things away, you know, signed copies and things away for people raising money for various charities, and also the RNLI. I do a lot to support the RNLI, so that's another cause that I tend to support. I'm hoping once my move's done, I'll be able to do a lot more, but I'm kind of loath to promise anybody at the minute, because we're actually moving to Brixham, hopefully in the next couple of months. But I've got to pack all my house up here, and also my mother-in-law's house, because she's moving with us, and then move into the new house. So I'm kind of a bit at sixes and sevens at the minute.
Fair enough. Sam has said, do you have a favourite place that one of your books has appeared, e.g. a picture from a friend or fan?
Ooh.
Good question, Sam.
That is a good question. One of my friends sent me a photo once of one of my books that was in Dubai, that she'd found in Dubai some years ago, and I was like, flipping heck, I didn't realise they'd travelled that far. I kind of forget sometimes when I write that people are actually going to be buying and reading the books, because I tend to live in my own little bubble. And then, like this morning, I had a lovely email from a nice lady saying how much she was enjoying them, and I suddenly thought, oh yeah, people are buying the books and reading them. I do just get carried away with what I'm doing, not really think.
Someone said good luck with the move.
Oh, thank you.
Sam has asked if you've developed any friendships during the last year or so, people that you haven't met in real life yet. So me and Sam, for instance, my phone tells me every morning that I might want to message Sam, because we work together on this all the time. In fact, it thinks I should message her more than I message my husband. And we've not met in real life yet. So
I've got quite a few sort of online friends and online groups that, for various geographical reasons, we've never met, but who, you know, we've communicated with one another for years and years and years. We've done online baby showers for one another, all kinds of things, you know. So it's surprising, isn't it? Sometimes those friendships can be really strong friendships, and it doesn't matter that you've not necessarily met in real life.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing because Sam said that I absolutely should message her more than James. She also suggested that we have a Dartmouth date.
Oh yes, definitely.
Which I 100% am nominating myself, like, high in the Kitty Underhay fan club. So I fully intend to stalk you for a real life.
Oh yes, that would be good. Definitely.
Meet up. I'm going to put that out there.
I know some great places around Torbay that you'd absolutely love. One of my favourite places is Oldway Mansion, and that's in Paignton, and that's the most fabulous place. And they're going to be opening their tea room soon, and that would be fabulous to go and meet up there. If anybody's in Paignton, go check out Oldway Mansion, their garden and grounds. It's absolutely gorgeous. It used to belong to the Singer family, and it was a hospital and a country club in the First World War. And nobody seems to know anything about it, really. People outside Paignton don't seem to realise it's even there. And it's beautiful, it's fabulous. It's real Agatha Christie stuff. Right there, you could picture Kitty, Matt, Poirot just walking around the lovely gardens. And it's free, completely free. What more can you ask for?
Sam says she loves Torbay and Paignton. I have a soft spot for a cafe in Kingsway called More at 13, because my niece owns it.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out. Yeah.
So obviously family loyalty.
Oh, I'll have to check that out, definitely.
She's a delightful young woman as well. I'm not biased in any way whatsoever.
No.
So you said that in Murder at the Wedding,
yes,
Kitty and Matt are coming up for her cousin's wedding up to Yorkshire, which is where I live.
Yeah.
Which part of Yorkshire are they heading to?
Just outside Ripon is where they're going to be. That's where they are.
So a bit of North Yorkshire.
Yeah, so I've sort of fictionalised a little bit of around there. Borrowed some real life stuff and then fictionalised the rest.
Is that a place that you're familiar with? Is that?
I'm more familiar. I've been there several times, particularly to Harrogate, and I was hoping to go last summer to Harrogate to Thieves in Crime. For the first time ever, I was actually going to go. I booked a place and everything, and then of course COVID hit, so I didn't get to go because I was going to combine it with an extended research trip. So that was a bit daunting. So I ended up having to do more research online than I would normally do. Normally I like to go to the places, but it just simply wasn't possible, and I've got the deadline to meet. So but luckily the places I was researching, I contacted them all, and they were so helpful and so nice, and sent me various different leaflets and books and all kinds of things for what I needed. It was fabulous. They were fantastic. So hopefully I've managed to get it right.
We're a fairly friendly bunch up in Yorkshire.
Well, my youngest daughter, she lives in Manchester, and her boyfriend's from Leeds, so and they live there, so they're very useful as well at sort of, you know, telling me which bits I need to make sure I've got right.
Leeds is where I live. So Sam said she also loves Yorkshire. We need road trips. We do a Harrogate road trip.
Yeah,
hopefully Harrogate is going to be on this year. She said, how different has it been researching online versus in person?
I usually do a combination of the two anyway, but I do like, if it's places that I need to check out, I like to go in person to meet people and talk to people and just take photographs and see for myself different things. Like Murder at Enderley Hall, the second book, where it talks about the railway engine pub. That pub is still there. It's called the Beer Engine now, for instance. It's actually a microbrewery. They're just fantastic food. Again, I highly recommend anybody that wants to do a little trip out to Newton St Sire, that's where to go. And they'd also got all these fabulous vintage photographs on the wall, and we're happy to talk about the history of the pub and how it all fitted in. As you know, if you've read the second book, there isn't a huge amount of that makes the page, but it still has to be, in my head, it has to be right. So I do like to go and sort of see things for myself. I always have to bear in mind that how I'm looking at it today might not be how it was back in the 1930s, particularly, say, for instance, when I did some of the things at Exeter, like Murder on the Dance Floor. Quite a bit of it did get flattened, but the important parts, like where Father Lamb's house is, that's presbytery is a real presbytery in that actual street. What it's like inside, I don't know. I didn't dare knock on the door and say, excuse me, can I have a look at your dining room? I think that would have been a bit cheeky. But the tunnels, you can do it in non-COVID times. You can do a tour of the tunnels under the streets of Exeter in the old water tunnels. There are so many things that you can do. And it's where I can, I try and get to those things so that I can actually describe them properly for people. That it doesn't just feel like a textbook description, that it feels like an actual place.
I feel like the sort of location is really important as well. So do you ever on like your author website kind of have photos of the locations for people who are not familiar?
Yeah, sometimes I put them on my blog, and if anybody goes on my Facebook author page, quite often I'll put photographs on there of different research photos and different things that I've taken pictures of, that there'll be various things that will pop up and people can see sort of different things. And sometimes I ask people different questions on there, like we asked a question a while back on Instagram and on my Facebook author page, because Matt is thinking of getting a dog. So we were asking people about what they thought about Matt having a dog and what kind of dog it should be. And I found this fantastic photo of a First World War soldier on his motorbike with his dog, riding on the motorbike with his paws, sat behind the rider with his paws upon his shoulders, which was quite good. So that, you know, it's that kind of thing that's a bit of fun for people to give their opinion on.
Leslie's asked, she says she's not familiar with the books or the historical murder mysteries. Yeah, they are, Leslie, kind of more on the cozy edge, historical sort of 1930s.
It's quite funny, really, because I always think people go, oh, it's cozy. But when you read about some of the murders I'm actually writing about, they're actually quite nasty, quite vicious murders. But I think because the focus is not so much on that graphic description, but more on the puzzle of the how and the why and the who of the murder, rather than the actual scene of the murder, it doesn't have that shock value, I don't think. So they're quite nice if you want a good puzzle to read, sort of, you know, late at night, you're in bed and you just think, oh, I'd like to wind down for a bit with a book. They're the kind of book that I like to read. So
I guess with the historical aspect as well, like you do have to make it more about the how and the why, because you don't have that same. So now, like a modern day a modern day investigation of some of those events would be more focused on the scene and the evidence and the things
the procedures and the you know, and then you've got all those issues about, you know, it's quite nice in the 1930s that, you know, there wasn't obviously a mobile phone, and not everybody even had a telephone, you know, so you could actually have to, you know, even if you came across, say, a body, you might have to travel another 5 miles before you actually found sort of somewhere that had a telephone that you could actually raise an alarm even. So it opens up a different set of potential things to, say, a modern day procedural or a modern day cozy crime.
So you say you like to read. Can you read crime while you're writing?
I read all kinds of things all the time, so I tend to read a mixture. So I'll read a romance, then I'll read a cozy crime. Particularly if it's by a favourite author, then I'll read something different. Like, for instance, I've just finished, what have I read lately? I read Mudlarking, which was written by somebody she's a mudlark, and what she finds on the banks of the River Thames, and with her photos and different things. And that was quite interesting. It gave you quite a lot of social history about London, so I read that. Then I read a book by one of my favourite cozy crime writers, an American writer. She writes the Myrtle Clover mysteries, which are great fun, huge fun. Her detective is an 80-year-old lady. And they're just brilliantly done and just so good to read. So I read that. And then next on my list, I've actually got it's an autobiography. It's I Ran with the Gang by Alan Longmuir from Bay City Rollers is next on my list. So it's a bit varied, as you can see.
It is. I have only been reading for author chats this week. So I've finished Murder at the Playhouse. I'm reading a book called Brazilian Psycho for an author I'm interviewing tomorrow. And I read Strange Tricks by Sid Moore as well.
Oh, that's a good title.
I know. She writes a series that called the Essex Witch Museum series, and they're linked. They're linked a bit into history as well. So the owner owns a witch museum in Essex, and they talk about the Essex witch trials, and they're always referred back to kind of a real historical event.
That sounds good, because I like to find a good series. I like Leslie Cookman's books. They're very good if anybody wants a good series as well. And hers are very well researched, and you really feel like you're in that particular part of the world. It's really good. So.
Yeah, I think it's great when you find a series of books, maybe set in a part of the world that you like, or set in a kind of time that you're interested in, or it's so good when you find a new author whose books you really like. So I'm happy that there's so many more like.
Oh yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. If I can find a whole thing to sort of glom, then that's great. So I'm right there.
Well, keep writing, Kitty and Matt, for all of us who are feeling like that about your series. Because it just makes me happy that I'm on book 3, but I know that there's still loads for me to go. Absolutely brilliant. Sam says, you mentioned receiving letters from readers. Other than wondering what will happen between Kitty and Matt, what else are you asked about?
I'm asked all kinds of things sometimes. I'm asked a lot about Dartmouth and Torquay, you know, whether they can go to the particular places that I mention. I've had some lovely ones from people that lived there during, you know, when they were young children during that time, who said, oh, I loved your description. It was exactly like that. That's how I remember it. And when I remember my mother talking about that particular thing, you know, like the seaplanes landing at Goodrington, you know, and things like that. And I said, I remember my mother telling me about that, and I remember that, and they love that sort of aspect of it. It sort of brings something back for them that they are kind of forgotten, really. And that's really nice when you get comments like that. It's really nice when you get things from people that, have lived there for a long time and they say, yes, you've got it right, because that's important.
Leslie Field says Hazel Holt is good as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
She did ask a little bit further up if you had a favourite author. So I have a thing where I say that I have authors, too many, because I never have any money. I call shut up and take my money authors. You know, the ones whose like name, you just see their name.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have several of those.
Just
I just see the name. If I haven't got that book, then I'm buying it. It's straight in my bag.
Exactly. Who are your ones?
Oh, this is difficult because there's so many different ones that I like, because it depends. Because I read so widely. I mean, anything by Jenny Cruzy that I've not read, I don't think there is anything that I've not read, but if I was to come across one that I'd not read, then I would be grabbing that and dropping it in. I love Agatha Christie. I love, as I say, the Kate Shackleton books, any of those that I come across that, like, usually I've got them sort of marked on Amazon, so they let me know when one's coming up so I can grab it. I love, they're really old now, but they're the Betty Neal's books from Mills and Boon. She wrote about 90 odd, and I think I've got about 80 odd of them now in various forms. I stalk charity shops, Amazon, all sorts of places to get those. They're my comfort read. If you like reading really old-fashioned romances with big sturdy heroines who like their food, who are rescued by large rich Dutchmen who drive Rolls Royces, and she shops in C&A and she's poor and impoverished and she just wants to protect her dog, then they're the books for you. If you're not into that, then don't. But they're a real good comfort read for me. I just enjoy reading them so much.
I'm telling them a bit. That sounds marvellous. Sam says, are your books available in other formats such as audio?
Yes, they're out in paperback, Kindle and audio. And the girl that does the audio, Alex Tregear, she's a localish girl. She's from Bristol originally, and she was in the Harry Potter films, and she narrates them. So she's so brilliant. I just couldn't believe it when I heard the first one, because it's always strange hearing somebody else reading something that you've written, because it takes on a different life, because obviously they're interpreting it their way, and how she puts the different inflections for the different characters so that they're all so different, and she captures the sound of Devon so well. She's just brilliant. I absolutely love her narrations, and she's done all of them so far, and I've got really good feedback from readers about them too. She's such a talented actress.
Leslie Field said she likes Betty Neal's. She loves her.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna have to start. I'm making notes of these in my head.
You've got to pick it up and think, what's she on about?
I'm looking for all of them.
It takes you straight back to the 70s. It's fab.
I'm with you on like Kate Shackleton and stuff. Frances is lovely as well. If you've ever had a chance to meet and talk to her, she's fascinating. Love those. Apart from that, like cozy crime, probably one of my favourites is Charlene Harris, who's more known for like the True Blood series.
I don't think I've ever read those.
It's got like no, they're all like vampires and
I think that's probably why I've not.
She's got cozy crime ones called the characters are like Aurora Teagarden and Lily Bard, and Aurora's like a librarian who's in this group called the Real Murders Club, where they investigate like true crime, and she keeps getting sort of drawn into solving crimes in a town. And they're very cozy and kind of like they're my kind of comfort. Like I love things like that to just sort of fall into and enjoy. Leslie says, have you read any Peter Boone? He's a big Agatha Christie fan and does murder mysteries, but in a modern setting.
No, I haven't actually. It's not a name I know, that one. So I have to look out for that, because I'm always on the lookout for recommendations and different things. I love finding new authors that I've not read before.
He's got Kate Ellis is another one you might like. She she writes kind of books with a historical bent. There's like one set in sort of just after the First World War in like Cheshire and things, and then she's got a series that she's more well known for called the Wesley Peterson series. It's modern day, set in Tradmouth and Queensway, which are like a thing we disguise Dartmouth and Kingsway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They all link back to a historical thing. Because
I like Clara Benson's Angela Marchmont series. They're quite good. I like reading those. Those are good read.
Sam says my mum's recently discovered Peter Boone's books and she thinks she needs yours next. She's discovered a love for cozy crime and loves historical books, and you definitely need to buy them, Sam. I'm hooked. Like, I'm not even lying. Do you know, people think that when you do these things, because I'm very bad at this, people think when you do the author chats that you're probably just saying nice things because you're interviewing the author chats. I am actually a massive fan. Not lying.
No, that's nice. That's nice. But I can see your bookshelves behind you look very similar to my bookshelves behind me. They're just sort of like rammed. Those shelves are double stacked. There's another row behind them. So
there are books everywhere in my house. My husband,
and in mine. So
he's just like, I'm not gonna. At one point, it'd have been like, have you bought too many books? And now he's just like.
Yeah. My husband bought me a Kindle, you know, because he was like a bit worried that the books were just taking over the house. But the Kindle's quite full as well as the bookshelves. So, yeah. I did whittle a lot down though when we were on the first lockdown. I put box out on my front lawn every day, and we gave away well over, I think it was getting on for about 300 books in the end. People just, because they couldn't, as people were out for their daily walk, they just came and helped themselves to the books and just took them away. So that was really nice to do.
Yeah, I put mine in the local free library a lot for the same reason, especially in lockdown.
Yeah.
I tried to take as many as I could to the local free library, so people had stuff to read.
Yeah, it was just so important. I think people really started to value reading again. I know that the one girl that took a load of the books out, it was for her grandmother who was in her 80s, and she was actually recovering from COVID. She'd actually had COVID, been really poorly, and she was just desperate for something to read. So she was chuffed to bits. I think I got quite a few Maeve Binchy books, so she took all of those. And she said her grandmother was absolutely thrilled because she got things to, you know, read while she recovered. So that was nice.
Lovely. It's really nice. Sam also asks if you've got any signed books that you treasure. Her collection started with Jacqueline Wilson and is now full of crime books.
I have. I've been very lucky because I've got quite a lot of friends who are writers who've I've either bought their books or they've given me their books. So I've got loads by different people. Philippa Ashley, Liz Fennick, Julie Cohen, loads of different people, different writers. So I've got different signed books by. I've got a whole shelf full, different ones.
Yeah, I have a signed bookshelf. It's downstairs, and I've got a lovely collection of like prized kind of books on it, like things that I really like.
Yeah, mine's next to my bed in the other room. I've got another book.
Well, mine is actually for my signed books right next to my bed. We had this auction when we reached 5,000 members. We're having one again in July and August, so really soon. Last time it benefited my school that I work at, so I work at a special school. This year it's going to Red Kite Academy in Northampton, which is a special school, which is what our shorts anthology is donating to as well. And I got so many signed books in that last one, and it's brilliant. And then I kind of collected them. So like I got to interview a lady this year who I bought my first book I got in the first auction we did when we got 5,000 members, and now I've got the whole collection. Like I just went and kept buying the paperbacks from her. So I had the full set. across my thing. So it worked really well, did the auctions. It didn't work for my bank account, but it worked really well for the authors. So it's worth keeping an eye out there, because there's some good books coming up in this year's ones.
I have to have a look.
As I say, signed and sent to you. They're like, it'll be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so most prized one though, have you got like a most prized signed one that you wouldn't let anyone touch?
Oh. No, I think all of them really are the same, because I just couldn't part with any of them, so they're all sort of like nicely stacked up. I think the ones that are the most special ones, and people always like give me a sort of odd look, are actually my signed Mills and Boons, because I love Mills and Boons books. I've always loved Mills and Boons books. I think they're so brilliantly done. To craft a novel within such tight guidelines and to deliver on their promise to a reader is actually really difficult to do. And I take my hat off to those authors. And there's some of them that I absolutely love. I've got a signed Jessica Hart book. That's probably my favourite. Jessica Hart was my favourite Mills and Boon writer. I just adore her Jessica Hart books. They're so beautifully done. And they're like all my favourite tropes, if you like. I love fake engagement books. And they're really hard to do these days. And she always did them brilliantly.
So what are you working on at the moment? So you've talked to us a bit about like Death at the Wedding and things like that. What are you kind of writing at the moment?
I'm just outlining book 8, which at the moment is called Death on a Train, which is a terrible title. I'm quite sure my editor will give it a much more inspiring title than that. So I've got that as an outline, just roughly done at the minute, which I do need to show her and see what she thinks. Whether she goes, "Oh, Helen, what have you done?" or whether she goes, "Okay, let me just get on with it." But she knows that whatever I tell her I'm going to write, it usually ends up being slightly different by the time she gets it. But she's very good like that. She just lets me crack on with it. And I've got a few other bits and pieces of things which are in various stages sort of sitting in my files, which I work on as I get time to work on them. One's a contemporary romance. It's literally just vaguely forming. And the other one is another 1930s set book. Well, but it's set slightly later. I'm just in the process of moving it to wartime. And that's got a new heroine and a new hero in that one. So we'll see how I get on with writing that. I'm not sure if the world is quite ready to meet Miss Treen yet. She's quite a character.
I'm sure we all are. We'd love to. Yeah, I'd look forward to it. Do you want to finish us off? Got 2 minutes left to give us a reminder of like your books.
Okay.
There were some covers and things.
Oh, hang on. Now I'll try and get this right, because you know I can't tell left from right, so I'll try to do it. Right, that's the latest one, which is it says making mad grab. Yep. Murder at Elm House. As you can see, there's the car and the gloves and the actual building that's in Torquay. And this is going backwards, really. So we've got Murder at the Bell Tower. That's book 5. That's set back at Endley in the middle of winter over Christmas, and that's quite a fun book. Murder on the Dance Floor, which everybody's gone when they read it, but I loved writing Murder on the Dance Floor. It was great fun to write, and that's set mainly in Torquay. And you've got Murder at the Playhouse, which is set at the Pavilion in Torquay. And as you know, the Pavilion is still there. They've just recently announced that they've got quite a decent grant for that. So I'm hoping very much that the Pavilion will be brought back to life and back to how it should be, because it's the most fabulous building and the most beautiful place. I always thought it'd make an excellent casino, but back in its day, it was a theatre and opera house. That's that one. And you've got Book 2, Murder at Enderley Hall. So that's set near Newton St Sires, just outside Exeter, which is the home of Kitty's cousin, Lucy, and her aunt and uncle. And then the very first book, the book that starts it all off, Murder at the Dolphin Hotel. And I love that they actually used photograph of Dartmouth Castle in the background on the cover of there to make it a really nice cover. And there you see Kitty in her favourite red, because Kitty loves red, enjoys wearing red. So quite often you'll see Kitty wearing something red on the covers of the book.
Lovely. So I'm going to finish you off with a couple of comments that say, thank you both so much for a great interview. And Leslie Field says, moving to wartime, yay, can't wait.
Yeah, so that should be fun. I've got lots of research and stuff to do on that one, but I'm quite enjoyed the bit I've done so far. Miss Jane Treen is quite a character. She's a chain smoker who's addicted to coffee. And Arthur, poor Arthur, with his asthma, is not the most likely of hero material at the moment. So, but I think they'll make quite a good team. So it should be interesting to write. But we'll see how that goes. Needs a bit more time to cook, that one.
They sound fantastic. And all that's left to say is thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I love talking about books and authors and anything bookish.
Yeah, me too.